And welcome back to Real Talk Sports with Rico. Today, I will be your host. Today's show, we are talking about the NBA season here. I'm actually recapping weeks 4 through 6 and just really going through some of the hot stories that have been in the headlines here for the NBA. Before we actually jump into the content, let me first and foremost thank Spotify Podcasts, which is the home for the podcast. You actually can also catch us on the YouTube channel at Real Talk Sports with Rico. Definitely make sure that you like and subscribe that and follow us there. Generally, the shows pop up every Sunday or Monday are the days that we actually post for the show. So we do have some special content coming for you guys in the next couple of days. I also want to go ahead and thank the sponsors out there who have put sponsorship on the show. And then also to the fans out there who have chimed in on a week-to-week basis to help us drive storylines to the show. And so without further ado, guys, let's go ahead. Let's jump into what has been hot in the NBA. And I think that it's appropriate, actually, that we start off with the Western Conference, not the Eastern Conference here. And I've got tons of graphics and videos for you guys here, so I hope you guys enjoy that. But let's start off with, I think, the hottest topic in all the NBA, and that is the Los Angeles Clippers and talking about their struggles as a whole since they have gotten James Harden. I know they have gotten off the snide here in winning their first basketball games with James Harden here against the Rockets. So, it was a wall-to-wall I guess victory for the Clippers, if you say that. I mean, they really fought hard for it. When I say wall to wall, like they really had to dig in the mud for it. And I think that they got fortunate at the end where they get a 4-point play from James Harden, ironically, against one of his old teams to win the game. But I'm not really sold on James Harden being there. And I stand by what I said earlier once the move was made. You also can see that content that I put up in a short as well, in saying that the Clippers essentially won the bag in that sense that they won the money in the trade because they're going into a new stadium here in Inglewood. And I think that that is certainly going to attract fans to get tickets to the stadium and fill it out. But they are not going to win the ring or the brass. They are just not going to win that ring and ultimately be in the NBA Finals because it just doesn't work. And you could say, oh, well, you're just saying that. Here's a stat that I actually found very intriguing. This was taken off of NBA TV as I was actually looking at that game that had just finished here. But take a look, guys, at this. So over the last 5 games, leading into this 6th game that the Clippers obviously just won here, I'm going to actually bring this thing out for you guys a little bit more so you can see it. So looking at this over the last 5, look, Russ on the court with Harden, they were negative 36. Russ on the court without Harden, they're plus 9. Kawhi on the court with Harden, negative 56. Kawhi on the court without Harden, plus 21. PG on the court with Harden, negative 45. PG on the court without Harden, plus 14. Okay. In each scenario, guys, I have actually, this tweet was provided again during the NBA TV coverage after they had just lost their, I think, 5th game here. And you are seeing it right now, guys, that under no circumstance is any star paired up with Harden, is that working? Okay. And when that says negative 36, this is the box score. So that means that, when you're on the court, you're either getting outscored, turnovers are happening. This is something that as an NBA fan, just look up the plus minus. If you're in the negative, generally that's not good. There are situations where you could be in the negative and you can still win games and players can still actually be effective. I think that I was looking it up. I think that historically, like even a good bench player, I think you're either at negative 4 or 5 or something like that, but it is extremely low and you could still be an effective player. But negative 36, though, negative 56, negative 45. I mean, these are alarming numbers, guys. And it's just one of those situations where you look at this and you just say to yourself, under no circumstances are the Clippers in good standings when they have these stars paired up with Harden. And I've said that it's mainly not going to work because Harden cannot play off the ball. And that's essentially what he would have to do. And I have to give a shout out to Russ Westbrook, who is actually one of my favorite players. I'm a Chicago Bulls fan, and I'm saying this right now. If we were to trade for Russell Westbrook, I think that he would be successful there because that's what he is. He's a point guard that needs to have the ball in his hands. That's the most effective thing, and I think that the Clippers have essentially reverted back to what he got out of when they got him from the Lakers or Utah when he was bought out there. So I just think that they have got to just basically come to the grips that this is not going to work. They probably need to move on from this situation as quickly as possible. And the irony of this is that if you're a Clippers fan and you're looking at OKC and you're looking at Shea Gillis Alexander, you have to be thinking to yourself, you traded away Shea Gillis Alexander for Paul George. And the furthest you have gotten is to the Western Conference Finals. And the closest that you have gotten to a real championship probably was their bubble season. And who knows? I think the Clippers probably would have won the championship had they not had the bubble situation. I don't think that the Lakers, in my opinion, would have been able to complete that season. I'm not sold on Anthony Davis being healthy throughout that year. The fact that they had a 4 months layoffs, I think that did wonders for them, but I'm not going to take away their chip. But what I'm trying to say is that Shea Gillis Alexander has turned into a just dynamic player. And I'm wondering at some point, is Paul George, or not Paul George, but is Kawhi Leonard saying to himself, man, what if we would have just kept Shea Gillis? I would have came and we would have kept the roster as is. Would we have been closer to a championship situation than you are now? And I just think that to put this to rest, guys, the Clippers have got to move on from this situation. This is a toxic situation. This is not going to work. The people out there, please stop tweeting and putting this in the headlines. It is not going to work. You see the proof here. This is not a good situation for the Clippers. Moving forward, let's look at some of the hotter teams here in the West. And let's start with the Dallas Mavericks. I have loved the Dallas Mavericks. I love everything about the Dallas Mavericks and what they've been able to do. Yes, they don't play any defense, but so what? At the end of the day, they are winning games. And I think that it really starts with what Luka Doncic has been able to do on the offensive end. But more importantly, look at what you have gotten from Tim Hardaway Jr. coming off the bench. I think that he has been outstanding in his role. I think that he has done a terrific job in actually going out here and finding a rhythm off the bench and really giving them some firepower there. I like the fact that when you look at Dallas, another thing that has been critical for them is that Kyrie Irving has actually missed some games, but they've actually still been okay. I think that one of the big things that they did in the offseason was they went out and they got Derek Jones Jr. here. They went out and they got Grant Williams here, who has been in the NBA Finals before. But more importantly, Derek Lively, who you're seeing up on the screen, I think he's been phenomenal. I know he hasn't, been the rookie of the year watch or anything like that, but he has been absolutely solid. And I said this before, like, I really think that he is like Jared Allen in Cleveland, a guy that I really love as a big. And I think as he develops his offensive game more, I certainly think that Derek Lively is going to be a terrific center. I think he's in a perfect situation to catch lobs and everything else here. Like, I love everything about what Dallas has been able to do. And I've got to give Jason Kidd his flowers because he's doing a terrific job right now as far as going out here, coaching these guys up, and just getting the Mavs into a favorable situation. Right now, they're 9-4. They're third in the West here, 4-2 in the conference. Right now, they're 4-1 at home, so they're taking care of that advantage here. So I like what they are doing here so far in the West. So kudos out there to the Mavs. Next up in the West, as we move forward here, just kind of briefly skimming through and looking at some teams and what they've been able to do. I've got to give the flowers here to the Houston Rockets. the Houston Rockets have certainly made a huge turnaround here since last year. I think that when you look at what Coach Duca has been able to do, you're getting a guy that has coached the Celtics up. And I think, he has, well, he did. He essentially took the Celtics to the NBA Finals before he was let go in that situation that he had with Boston. But he has done a great job in utilizing Dylan Brooks. And I think that we should now give Dylan Brooks his flowers because Dylan Brooks has been phenomenal out there. I think he has played extremely well. I think that he was absolutely the scapegoat in Memphis. And I think that he was absolutely not the problem with Memphis. And I think that he has come in, he has embraced his role. And I think that he has been able to show that he could be a little bit more of an offensive contributor than he was given in Memphis. Now, I know he said he wanted to be more like a first and a second option. That's still not going to happen with the way that they have Sengun up here, who you guys know I love Sengun. I've said that Sengun is a lot like a Mark Gasol, excuse me. The way he's able to use his footwork, his shoulder work, his pivot work is beautiful. He's one of the last big man out here that actually knows how to actually play in the post and doesn't need to be able to shoot a three-point shot. He's going to remind you a little bit of Sabonis with the way he's able to pass, but more importantly, he can get you. I mean, he's a sneaky good, quick jumper. He's got a couple posters where he's dunked on some people. And I think that this has been a good compliment here to Jabari Parker, who's been able to basically come out here and he's been able to now step on the perimeter and be a little bit more of a perimeter-based big, right? Because I think last year he had to play a little bit more of the five and be a little bit more of an interior player. I'm not sure that he's necessarily going to be that. He's more of like an Anthony Davis, and he's a bit lighter than Anthony Davis. I think he's done a terrific job with Jalen Green and allowing him to develop. I think you're seeing now he's a little bit more of a consistent scorer than he's been in the past, right? Because this is something that I think that he has struggled with. And so you have got to give Houston their flowers. Because right now, Houston is sixth in the West. They're 6-4. They're 5-3 in the conference here, 6-4 over their last couple of games. And I like where they're headed. Obviously, I think that the big thing that you're going to get out of this podcast is that the West is completely flipped in the sense that teams that have been at the bottom are now at the top, and the teams that have been at the top are at the bottom. So we'll talk about that here. So moving forward here in the Western Conference, and another guy too is Amin Thompson has done very well for the Houston Rockets too. Van Fleet. And so now moving forward with Memphis, I knew Memphis was going to struggle. Memphis has really struggled from a guard situation. Marcus Smart really hasn't adapted there. Derrick Rose hasn't been able to contribute that good as well. But I think the key for this is that you knew what was going to happen with John Morant, and I think essentially their season is over. Steven Adams has been ruled out for the year. They don't have any bigs. Brandon Clark is still out with the Achilles. You're still really dependent on Jared Jackson Jr., and he's really shown that he has had trouble staying on the floor from, handling foul situations and things like that. So Memphis, I think, is a team that I didn't think that they were going to be out of it at this point, but they clearly are out of it. Next up, the Pelicans and Zion Williams, starting with him. So Zion Williams has made the statement that he feels like he is, quote unquote, out of the rotation at this point in time. And so, it's hard to really put Zion Williams into a rotation when the guys that are supposed to play with him, CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, right? None of which have been necessarily healthy. Brandon Ingram has been a bit more available this year, but now you're having CJ McCollum, who is out to a collapsed lung, which is the second time in his career. Currently, the Pelicans are 9th in the Western Conference at 6-7, which I think, to be honest with you, it has to be a little bit of a disappointment because, I think that most people would say that going into this thing, they expected the Pelicans to be a lot better than what they were. And I think with Zion Williams, his inconsistency as far as staying in shape has really, really hurt the Pelicans. And I think it's really, really hurt as far as him being in the rotations and things like that. And I just feel like, he's got to figure out what he can do as far as staying in shape in order to um, you know, give himself the best chance to be in the rotation and things like that. So I think that honestly speaking, man, that this frustration is going to boil over. I'm not sure that the Pelicans are going to find a rhythm here. And I will give a shout out to Jordan Hawkins. Okay. I think he's for sure, if you listen to my summer league podcast, I said that this is a guy I feel like that he's going to be the closest to Ray Allen. Okay. So I know he's not putting up like these huge, huge numbers. He has had some outbursts where he's put up like 31 points here and there. He's really shown that he can shoot the ball, and he hasn't really shown that he can do anything else besides that, assist here and assist there. But expect for at some point they're probably going to move on from CJ McCollum, or they're either going to have to put him into the lineup as a starting point guard, even though I think he's more of a two-guard situation. I could see this probably being a lot like what happened when they had back in the day when Milwaukee was trying to figure out what they were going to do with Ray Allen, and they had Michael Redd, and they ended up shipping off Ray Allen to Seattle. Like I could see a scenario like that happening with the Pelicans. Like I think that Jordan Hawkins is that good that he's going to force his way into the rotation. Remember, guys, he won a national championship with Connecticut, but to me, I've never seen a prettier shot other than Ray Allen. So just put that on your radar. I think that this guy is going to be incredible. I'm not going to say he's going to win Rookie of the Year, but I think in the next 2, 3, 4 years, people are going to be talking about Jordan Hawkins, and they're going to be like, why was he not playing more? So that's my spiel with the Pelicans. I think that they're in trouble long term. I'm not going to say that they're out of it, but I just think that from a rotational standpoint, I'm not sure they're going to figure it out. Next up in the West is got to be the Spurs and Victor Wembanyama. Victor Wembanyama has, I think, been incredible to me. I think he's been as advertised here. And I think that it's time that we give Victor Wembanyama his flowers. I think that a lot of people were wanting to write him off early. And I think that this is just not the time to write him off. And I think it's time that we truly start to respect him as a player and as a guy that essentially can go out here, and he's probably going to, I think, in a lot of ways, change the face of basketball because he's doing things that a lot of 7-footers just aren't doing in the game, guys. And I think that as he learns how to put it together on a night-to-night basis, because I think that's one thing you guys have got to look at. He's really doing a lot of stuff that is raw right now. It's one of those things where he's just pretty much going out there and playing pickup basketball. And what I mean by that is that Jordan Hawkins, all right, another rookie from UCLA who I think is incredible, just got torched by DeRozan, okay? And DeRozan has played in this league, for 10, 12 years, whatever that looks like. And he's a professional scorer. Now, he didn't necessarily come in like that. Can you imagine what's going to happen to Victor Wembanyama when he's able to take his skill set and his natural ability, and then now he's going to be able to know how to hunt defenders and how to pretty much put them on skates on a night-to-night basis? Think of what Kevin Durant has turned into as he's evolved, right? When Kevin Durant first came out of Texas, yes, he was terrific as a scorer, but now I just got done watching Kevin Durant on Friday night just torch Utah, literally took Utah and just took his belt off and beat Utah because he's just at a level now mentally and physically that defensively, it doesn't matter what type of look you throw at him, double teams, you try to put up a gate defense or a fence defense, that doesn't stop him. He can go over the top of that. He knows how to pass out of just about everything. He still knows how to affect the game in many different aspects on the box score. So it's like he's unstoppable. That's what's going to happen to Victor Wembanyama. And you put that freakish athleticism to go along with that, guys. He is going to be incredible. His stat line coming off his last game with Memphis, he was able to go out here. He got 19 points. He had 8 blocks. He had 13 rebounds. He had 4 assists. And yes, the Spurs lost, but can you imagine what is going to happen when they start to get people around him? I mean, I'm just really excited for Victor Wembanyama, and I think right now, I think he's the rookie of the year, right? Comparatively speaking to Chad Holmgren. Chad Holmgren is more of a role player on the OKC's roster, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just means that OKC is in a situation where more they have more pieces in place than what the Spurs have, and that's why you're seeing a little bit more of a dominance from Victor Wembanyama. But make no mistake about it, Chet Holmgren is very good. I think he's probably going to realistically finish second in the running thus far, even though the season's still going on. But Victor Wembanyama, I think, is a guy that you for sure want to keep your eye on. Next up here, talking about the Golden State Warriors. So with the Chris Paul project, I'm not sure if you can necessarily say it's working or not working. The one thing that I will say about this is that, the Golden State Warriors at this point in time, they're sitting 10th in the West. They're 6-8. They started off pretty hot. They're 3-7 over their last 10 here. And I think that ultimately speaking, what you're looking at is that they don't have the height that they wanted to have. Yes, they've sort of figured out their bench role and they've gotten a little bit more camaraderie since Jordan Poole is out of there. But they're still in a situation where they're in an awkwardness because Klay Thompson still hasn't figured it out. They're missing Steph Curry. They have figured out how to score on the road. I still believe in the championship mindset, and I think that Golden State is going to be there. But I still think that they honestly have some issues that they're going to have to wreck up the roster a little bit. I'm not sure if they're necessarily sold on what they have with Darko Saric here, and I'm not sure that they really know what they have with Kuminga. Nor the guard here that they just drafted as well. They're still trying to figure out what they want to do with Trace Jackson Davis. There's so many young pieces here. The Clippers, we just talked about it. I think that this is a situation where they're going to have to pretty much move some people. Moving forward, looking at the Lakers, a lot of people have been talking about the Lakers and how much Anthony Davis and LeBron James have had to play. They're sitting 7th in the West at this point in time at 7-6. I like the Lakers and I like their situation, mainly if you're looking at my screen right now. The one thing that I like about the Lakers is that they still have Rudy Hachimura. They still have Christian Wood. They still have Taurean Prince, who's been playing well. Gabe Davis has been in a little bit of an injury standpoint. You're probably disappointed if you are a Lakers fan because you thought that you were going to get a lot of what you got with the Heat there, and that really hasn't worked out for him. I think that, you are looking at a situation where essentially I think eventually it will work out for them. I think that they're just going to have to get in a situation where they get, him back and get him healthy. I think that it's going to work out for them in the long-term play. Next up here, talking about the Lakers, I think that you also have to love the fact that they have Jackson Hayes out here. I think that, Jackson Hayes is really going to help them out. I think that this is a situation where if you look at it, if Anthony Davis were to go out in any capacity here, I think that, it's going to help them that they have a situation where they can actually rely a lot on more height now. So if they ever have to lose Anthony Davis, they lose some height, they're in a good situation here. So the Lakers, I don't think that you go ahead and you panic here. Next up, the Phoenix Suns. So the Phoenix Suns, they are who we thought they were. Okay. The Phoenix Suns are 8th in the West. And I think that if you're a Phoenix Suns fan, and also too, if you were a fan of super teams and you thought that it was going to work, I told you several reasons why it's not going to work. And the main reason that I told you it wasn't going to work is because of the health. Bradley Beal has already missed a significant amount of time, and it's a back injury. This is something that he came over from Washington with an injury history, and he had not even had back injuries before, and now he has back injuries. when you look at the way that Bradley Beal plays, it's still, he is a great shooter, but he's more of a slasher now. And I think that he has to be a bit more of a slasher because they don't have a traditional point guard. Yes, Devin Booker shows that he can be a point guard. He's more of a scorer. I think if they were to put the ball in anybody's hands to make decisions, it's going to be Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal learned from John Wall. He learned how to be a point guard, and he also learned how to be a scorer in that sense coming from Washington. So I think he's going to have to revert to that role. That's going to put a little bit more twerk on his body because he's going to be handling the basketball more. He's going to have to penetrate the defense and kind of hunt out some matchups for Kevin Durant and Bradley, or excuse me, not Bradley Beal, but for now I can't even think of it, for Devin Booker, and then also for Kevin Durant. He's going to have to hunt that out a little bit more. So he's going to have to be a little bit more of a shot creator. Because of that, I think that that's going to put some more twerk onto his body. I think it's going to put some more energy output out there. And I think that this is not good for Phoenix. And as good as Kevin Durant has been, I don't know if Kevin Durant is going to be able to sustain this kind of physicality for 82 games. I just don't think that. Like, I think that Kevin Durant, that ship is probably passed. Now, I still believe in him. I just think that you're going to have to manage him a lot like kind of what Miami did with Dwayne Wade when LeBron James was there. Like, you're going to have to accept the fact that he's probably now like a 60 game per season player, like a 60, 50, maybe 70 at best. To say that you're going to get 82 games of what Kevin Durant is doing, that is a lot of twerk and a lot of just pressure on Kevin Durant to go out here and do this. And I just don't like this long term. I think Nurkic at some point is going to wear down as well. And so I don't like Phoenix. I don't like where they're going. They're going to have to revert to guys like Bol Ball, who you see here. Josh Okiegi's been terrific. Grayson Allen has come over. He has not been as good as he's been with Milwaukee. So I think that there's a lot of glaring problems here for Phoenix moving forward. Next up, you're looking at the Kings. I think the Kings have been phenomenal. I think I like where Mike Brown has been able to take the Kings here. I think the Kings have basically taken off where they have left off from last season, which is terrific when you're looking at a team that has kind of gone over that hump. And I like this situation. They had De'Aaron Fox injured with the ankle. He's come back. He's looked very good. They're still winning. I think Malik Monk has fit in absolutely brilliantly here. Kevin Huerter has actually shot the ball a lot better than what he has shot in the past here, because there was a little bit of, are we going to take him out of the starting lineup? I think he's done terrific there. Keegan Murray, terrific here as well. But what is interesting about the Kings, and I think that we should look at this, is that they have been mentioned in the Zach LaVine sweepstakes. And do I think that that would help them in the West? Sure. I think it's going to help them if they get another lead guard that's able to create his shots. But that would mean that the Kings are going to have to give up some of its young core and give it back to the Bulls. And right now, I'd say for that deal to move, I'm looking at Keegan Murray and Kevin Huerter, excuse me, at least would have to go. I think that those are two players that have to go. Now, does this affect the chemistry of what the Kings have? I mean, that's the bigger question if they make that move. I know LaVine has gone on record and said that he would be open to a Kings trade. So I'm curious to see what the Kings are going to do. Do they keep it as is? Or are they going to shake it up? I'm not sure. JaVale McGee has come over and been admirable for this team. He's played great defense, been a terrific rebounder. Chris Durrett, a guy that I was high out of Oregon, and a guy for the Pacers that has done well. So moving forward, guys, let's take a look here quickly at the Eastern Conference as we bring that up. Let's start with my Chicago Bulls, who have been a big disappointment. I think that, they were wondering if we go ahead and sign Vucevic's back and we have DeRozan, we have LaVine, were we going to be able to put it together? And the question, or the answer, is really they have not. They have not really been able to find consistent play from the point guard standpoint. I'm almost in agreement that I think that they probably should start to move on from Patrick Williams as well. I don't know if that necessarily has worked out. He's been demoted from the starting lineup. And in Cody White, he's been inconsistent. I thought Javon Carter would be a terrific signing for the Bulls. That hasn't worked out. Alex Caruso has been great, but he's been injury prone, and it's because he plays so hard and he only plays one speed. I don't have a problem with that. But I think if you were going to move between the two, um, I love Levine, but I think Levine probably gives you the most value. DeRozan, I think, is a guy that's still getting it done, and I think he can still work out. And I think Vucic is probably a guy that has to move on as well. Now, I'm not saying that you put DeRozan in a winless situation. I think with moving Levine and Vucic, you can still get you something favorable here, but I think the Bulls are going to have to move on, and especially get ready to move on from Lonzo Ball. The Cleveland Cavaliers have been what we thought the Cleveland Cavaliers were going to be here. They're still trying to figure it out. They've missed time, or Donovan Mitchell has missed time here, which is mainly one of the reasons why they've been in eighth place. Is I think that they've been just trying to figure out their lineup and how things are going to whirl for them. But I think at some point they are going to figure it out. Cleveland's going to be a lot better than what they have been. Next up, the Detroit Pistons. So with the Pistons, looking at them, I mean, the Pistons are terrible. They're 2-11. I thought that they were going to be a lot better with Monty Williams there. They haven't been able to put it together. And the one thing that really is glaring for me is that they've really pushed Jaden Ivey out of the lineup. And I don't like that. I think that Jaden Ivey is a guy that you probably should rely on. I know that the other rookie that they just drafted here, Azor Thompson, has played well, but I just think that it would be best served if they played Jaden Ivey a little bit more because they are not playing Jaden Ivey. I think that this is a situation where just the chemistry has not been there for them. And I'm not sure if Detroit is going to be able to put it together. They still have a lot of changes to go. How about one of the hotter teams in the East, and that is the Indiana Pacers? These guys are leading as far as fast break points and as far as pace of play. They're one of the faster, better teams to play. And this has generally been something for Golden State, but these guys have been outstanding. And it starts with Tyrese Halliburton. As Tyrese Halliburton has been healthy, the Pacers have been terrific. He has done a terrific job having multiple assist games of 12 plus. He's knocking down 3-point shots. Bruce Brown, has been an excellent addition to the Pacers. He's added that championship veteran leadership. Miles Turner being able to stay on the floor has helped them a lot. Buddy Hield, Benedict Mather, and these guys have been able to be very supplemental to that roster. The Pacers are looking very, very good. They haven't even unleashed Jace Walker, one of their top picks here out of Houston. I think that it's only going to get better for the Pacers. I'm very happy for them. I have to give them their flowers, or they are now fourth right now in the Eastern Conference. Obi Toppin has played well as well. Next up, guys, looking at the Eastern Conference, one of the bigger teams has been the Milwaukee Bucks. And so Milwaukee at this point, they're third in the East. I thought that they would be in this situation. I thought that they would look a lot better than what they have looked. Really haven't had those monster games between Dame Lillard and Giannis just yet, even though they're playing fine. But I think the one thing that's probably the elephant in the room is Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton has really struggled. I think that Chris Middleton has been a little bit inconsistent, and I think that that doesn't bode well for them as far as getting out of the East and even winning a championship. And so I think Milwaukee at some point is going to have to address this. I know that Chris Middleton has been a major building block and somebody that Giannis clearly trusts, but they may have to move on from that, or they're going to have to get them probably another serviceable third player, because it just hasn't been Chris Middleton. And he just really hasn't been the same, man, since he's had these injuries with the knees, the back, and everything else here for him. It's just been a really tough go. And it's unfortunate because I really like Chris Middleton. I like his game. I like how hard he's competed. And make no mistake about it, he is Milwaukee basketball, and he has really helped build this team up. It's unfortunate that he's struggling at this point in time. Especially, I think that they're going to really truthfully need him down the stretch. Next up, guys, let's take a look here at the Philadelphia 76ers. And so the Sixers have been phenomenal. And I think that, you have got to give a lot of that to Tyrese Maxey, the way he's been able to step in and play effective now that James Harden is gone. But kind of now, really the storyline is Kelly Oubre. Kelly Oubre has played well. He's supposedly out because he got hit in a hit and run, but if you look at what's going on, they're saying there's no evidence of a hit and run. I'm curious to see what is going to happen here. He has been a huge factor for them. And I think that he has kind of addressed maybe what they wanted from Tobias Harris to kind of step in that role, be a little bit more defensive minded, but also be offensively aggressive. And he's also given them a mesh of kind of what Tobias Harris and PJ Tucker has given them. So, look, Philadelphia is still in the running. They're 9-3 overall, 7-3 in the conference, 8-2 over their last couple. But it's a little bit of a cloud kind of going into their next 10. And I think that they're going to need everybody on the same page here, especially if they're going to finally uproot Boston and get into the NBA Finals. So we'll keep an eye on that situation, but I have got to give Philadelphia Nick Nurse his credit. He has been able to find the maximum out of this roster. And finally, with the Celtics have been phenomenal. They're playing very well. I think that Drew Holiday has kind of stepped in perfectly for them. Kristaps Porzingis has not had to do too much to go along with Al Horford, who's been quiet. They are still getting great play from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And you're wondering, I was curious to see with Boston, what was going to happen now that they didn't necessarily have the strongest bench that they've had in a while. But these guys have meshed. I have got to give, their coaching staff all the flowers here for putting this thing together. I think that they have really surprised me defensively. They've been a lot more better than I anticipated. And the injury bug has really not struck them like I thought it was going to strike them, because I thought that Kristaps Porzingis would be out for an extended amount of time by now. But because he has not had to be the main option here, I think that this has probably been, I think, the key for the Boston Celtics. And so, with that being said, guys, for the most part, that is, today's show. I wanted to just basically go ahead and talk about some of the key pieces in the East and the West, guys. And before I jump out of here, I just want to go ahead and thank the sponsors out there for putting sponsorship on the show. I want to go ahead and actually thank the fans out there who have chimed in on a week-to-week basis to help us drop some stories to the show. I want to go ahead and thank Spotify Podcasts, which is where you can find the podcast. Make sure that you also like and subscribe and follow us on the YouTube channel at Real Talk Sports with Rico. And so for myself, this is Rico. This is Real Talk Sports. I will be back, guys, with another show. Until the next one, peace. I'll see you guys.